We are live.
All right, we are live. I'm gonna give everybody like a minute or so to join in before we start. Before we jump into it, let me see, make sure that shit's posting everywhere. Yeah, we're good. I'll give everybody. Oh, there's no timer anymore. I can't even look at it. Countdown now. I guess I'll just wait till like 7:01.
No, it's all good.
Oh wait, nah, there is live. The live has a counter up. It's been a minute since I streamed, so
Yeah, is this your first show of the season?
yeah.
And you're just doing the Eagles Packers or Eagles games previews, or are you gonna kind of get we'll get into it obviously, but
Well, I'm gonna do this show every Wednesday night previewing the Eagles games. And then tomorrow night, every Thursday, I'm going to do the Green Zone, which I'm going to talk about like a betting preview of every game.
nice.
So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I started when I got hired for that PSF app last year. This was the show they hired me to do. But the way they had me like bringing guests on, it was like they had to download the app. Then people like the link wasn't working.
Bro, you
and
can't
I'm
get
just,
people to click two links, let alone download.
yeah,
Click.
I'm like, dude,
Yeah, it's
I'm
tough.
like, this is too much for me. Like, it's not worth it. Like, I'd rather just go live on YouTube or something and call it a day. And yeah, so it didn't work out. But regardless, all right, we'll jump in it now. Welcome into week 1 of Eagles versus the 2024-2025 season. Obviously, the Eagles are kicking it off with the Green Bay Packers, and I'm joined by my man Chris Gueci. Gooch.
What's good?
From Break Buds, as you can see. Chris, want to let the people know a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so if you guys have ever heard of Whatnot, it's basically TikTok meets eBay, and I sell autographs and sports cards on live streams and have some fun doing it. If anybody's on the Whatnot app, there you go. There you go. There you go. You actually hit big that night. I think you were on a roll. But
yeah, I wanted the Canes helmet bad though.
Oh man, bro, the Canes helmet, there was like 40, there was a bounty on the Canes helmet. But yeah, so we sell autographs and it's fun. If anybody's on the app, Whatnot, go check out the Break Buds. Very easy, little double entendre. If you know, you know. So go check us out. It's a fun time. And maybe I'll send you the link later for anybody that's not on Whatnot. This way they could start out with a free $15 voucher if they sign up through this link. For sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's highly recommended. I had so much fun that night, hopping in Chris's live stream, and the other guys over there at Break Buds. We were doing duck races, and
they banned the duck races on Whatnot, but we do have a YouTube channel, Break Buds TV, which you guys can go follow. But we will bring them back for football season. But we kind of, just like you said, it's your first stream. We kind of took a hiatus on YouTube as well.
Right, yeah, just got to get everything's getting back into football's here. So now we're getting back into everything. All right, as always, guys, feel free to jump in the comments. Send us any questions or comments you have regarding the Eagles-Packers game. I guess you could comment about anything. We'll be happy to answer, but primarily talking about the Eagles-Packers. And for those who live under a rock, this game is not taking place at Lambeau or Lincoln Financial Field. They are in the beautiful country, or not so beautiful country, of Brazil. It seems like a lot of the players are not shy about saying how much they wish they weren't having to play in Brazil. Don't want to go there. Darius Slay said he didn't want his family to come down there. They're not allowed to leave the hotel. Josh Jacobs actually was the first player to make waves a couple of months ago, saying that they said they're going to get a police escort to and from the stadium. Kind of crazy that they're going to go down there in Brazil. How do you see this all playing out? Do you think there's kind of overblown? I mean, I've never been, but
yeah, I think it's definitely overblown because it started out that neither team was allowed to wear their own uniforms because there was gang signs or gang affiliations with the color green. But honestly, from a Packers fan standpoint, I'm kind of pumped about it because if you look at Brazil's team, their national flag, their colors, their soccer team, they're green and yellow. So just by proxy, I think there's a lot more Brazilian Packer fans than Eagles fans, and it's considered a road game, but we're both on the road. So I'm happy about not having to go to Philly, even though I could have gotten to see my team play. I look at it as like an extra, maybe kind of what you would call a home game, but a home away from home game with the fans. I don't buy into the gang things and all that. Maybe you shouldn't be really leaving the hotel late night anyway if you're on my team. So do the right thing, boys. stick around. Don't answer any weird text messages, and everything will be all right. Go play some football.
Right, exactly. I seen well, they also banned Twitter, apparently. Brazil did, because, or X now, I'm sorry. Because they said they didn't want any beat writers or anybody down there like tweeting out how bad the like actual like city is where the game is in Sao
Yeah.
Paulo.
Yeah, that makes sense too. But what worries me, if anything, forget about the city and what's going on in the nightlife and the potential crime rate. I'm more worried about the field, just because, it's not a football field. So I could imagine that the coaching staff and the training staff has to have, we don't know how the field's going to play. It is a soccer field though. So these guys care about soccer. So there's one good sign, but I don't know, man. It worries me a little bit. My team going onto some weird field week 1.
I agree, but I do feel a lot better though that it's a soccer field, because they don't play, especially down there in Brazil, and we're talking about probably the most expensive ACLs on the planet play
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
field. So,
But is this like a premier soccer city, or is it just like they have the regular pro soccer team from Brazil there? Because then it might not be that much going into it in terms of care. We'll see, though. We'll see. I'm sure it's going to be a big topic leading up to the game Friday. The conditions.
for sure, yeah. I have no idea about their soccer affiliations. My knowledge of Brazil goes to like Neymar and Rio de Janeiro, and then I'm out.
Yeah. Maybe some UFC fighters, but
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But this game being in Brazil, actually, I want to start the show off with a little fun topic here on this. The game being in Brazil actually got me wondering on like what would be like a dream destination to like see a sporting event or see your team. In 2018, the year after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I actually went to London by myself to go see the Eagles play at Wembley. And I was like, what better reason to go across the pond and see an historic stadium like Wembley than to go see the Eagles? And the Eagles ended up beating the Jaguars, and I had a ton of fun. Probably drank way too much for being somebody alone in a foreign country. But I had a blast over there. So if you could come up with any dream scenario where not even just the Packers, any team you have, what would be your dream scenario?
I mean, for me, it would be a Packers game at Yankee Stadium.
Ooh.
I know that sounds a little corny because I've been to Yankee Stadium hundreds of times, but just the meshing the two together, it would be such a dope experience. And they used to play football at the old Yankee Stadium with the Giants, so I'm sure they could make it happen if it was a Giants Packers game at Yankee Stadium. For personal standpoint, that would be really great. But if we're talking about like a foreign country, ooh, I don't know, man. Maybe I would think something north, maybe something Nordic, because the Packers play up north, the tundra, all that. So maybe something like Sweden, and have a good time out there with the Swedes, and go beat up on the real Vikings.
That would probably be a good time for sure. And yeah, you're right. Like anytime you can transform a stadium into another sport, it just adds an extra element of excitement. Like this was years ago now. And I'm not even a crazy hockey guy. Like I follow the Flyers, but like it doesn't ruin my mood like the Eagles do, or even the Phillies for
Yeah.
that. But I went to the Flyers Rangers in Citizens Bank Park where the Phillies play, and during the third period, it actually snowed. Like that was like one of the
Yeah,
coolest,
that's
like
sick,
most
dude.
surreal moments I've had.
That's sick. I seen the Matsui Grand Slam in the snow on opening day. That was pretty cool. Yankee Stadium snowing, Grand Slam, but that still is just a regular. Nothing compares to a hockey game in the snow. And I'm not a hockey fan, but I could imagine.
For sure. Yeah, no, it was a good time. And I think you're a Rangers fan, right?
Dude, I don't give a shit about hockey. Like,
Okay.
not one iota. I choose to just dislike the Rangers because I get to be a hater in that regard, and I'll just pick. I used to play the hockey game on PS4, and I like the Lightning. I was a Stamkos guy,
Okay.
but before that, it was the Calgary Flames when they had a Ginla. So that was like kind of basing it off of just the video game, totally video game. But yeah, no hockey for me.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure that game I was at, the Rangers beat the Flyers like 5-2 or 6-2 or something like that. So I was gonna give you a shout out for pummeling us. But let's jump into the Eagles Packers. We're gonna go position by position here. Starting with quarterback, obviously, we'll have Jordan Love for the Packers, who's fresh off a brand new contract, and Jalen Hurts going to be playing in year 2 of his contract. I don't think Jordan Love necessarily has question marks coming into this season. I do think that he got paid basically because he played a handful of really good games. And then for him, they came at the end of the season. It seems like he really hit his stride as the season went on. And Hurts comes into the season with another new season of a new offensive coordinator, and he's just got a new deal, so it's hard to say it's a put up or shut up year. But we saw what the Eagles did with Carson Wentz newly into that contract when they realized they were like, all right, maybe this guy isn't it. Who do you think more pressure is on here in week 1 to get off into a hot start?
Well, I mean, just based on the city and the way the media reacts to things, I would say that Jalen Hurts is under a little bit more pressure. Green Bay kind of was playing on house money last year, so it was, we'll get to Jordan Love in a second, but as far as with Jalen Hurts, another new offensive coordinator, I feel like there was a lot going on with Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and there still really is, and a couple wins will kind of alleviate that real quick. But if they get off to a rough start, I think things could get ugly in Philly a lot sooner than they would get ugly in Green Bay, being that the Packers are the youngest team in football. And the way Philly finished as opposed to the way Green Bay finished last year, I think that the Packers fans have this sense of calm about the second half because it's typically how we play. We get stronger as the season goes. And if you look at Philly the last couple of seasons, they've gotten off to really hot starts and they kind of fizzled out late. So if the understanding is that Philly fizzles late in the season, you really need to get off to a good start, especially with the new offensive coordinator and things like that. So yeah. And Saquon, so they got weapons. They added to the offense.
It's no excuses for the offense.
Yeah, there's really no excuses whatsoever. And honestly, they're even 3 deep right now because I'm a Penn State fan, so I'm kind of high on Jahan Dotson. I feel like he kind of bad rap. Anybody that goes to the Commanders, you could say that about. You're dealing with a lot of shit when you're dealing with the Washington Commanders. So yeah, I mean, all the pressure is on Jalen Hurts for sure, 100%, and I don't really think that's even debatable.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like we said, the Eagles went out, Howie Roseman went out and got him Saquon, got him Jahan Dotson, locked up AJ Brown, locked up Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert's back. Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley, I actually really like as a playmaker out of the backfield if he does ever
get in. And the offensive line is still, they retooled. They lost Kelsey, but you could have made the case that I'm not going to say this. I know Philly fans might jump down my throat, but you could make the case that Kelsey was kind of on the downswing and he may have held them back down the stretch last year. Just a thought. I don't know enough about it, but the offensive line has consistently been in the top 5, and they look to be again, at least on paper. So yeah, Jalen Hurts needs to put up or shut up, but he's been putting up. I don't really put it on him.
I agree. The offense was a clusterfuck last year.
Yeah,
I didn't like the offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. I felt like his scheme was literally wide receiver screen, QB draw, streaks. Like anybody could defend that. But Kellen Moore is injuvenated this offense. A lot of motion so far in camp and in the preseason.
Very high pace too. They're going to set a high pace. They're going to run a lot of plays, which I think favors those players. A lot of offensive skill players that want to get out there and run the plays and get it going and get involved. And I think that's going to help for sure.
Absolutely.
And really quick to the point about Carson Wentz and Hurts. I don't even think it's comparable in terms of how they carry themselves off the field and how they approach the game. So I wouldn't worry too much about Jalen Hurts' leadership and how he approaches the game. I can't even put them in the same stratosphere with that.
Yeah, and the people here in Philly are kind of like Hurts is like almost too nonchalant and like cool.
Yeah.
For Phillies fans, like we're all like everybody talks about like he's on the sideline. They show him he's just sitting there, and they're like, bro, show some emotion.
Yeah, it's like the Robbie Cano effect. It's like, come on, I try a little bit, but he cares.
Oh yeah, no, the guy works his ass off, and that's why I'm really excited about this season because he heard all the shit talking all off season, and that's the type of guy that wants to come out and send a message. But moving to Jordan Love here, fresh off the new deal, well-deserved deal. Guy balled out last season with a lot of young, unproven wide receivers, and still got it done. And the offensive line wasn't tremendous last year. The offensive line is also young and upcoming as well. And Jordan Love looked really good, especially at the most important time of the year. What are your expectations for Love this season? And how do you think he's going to do Friday night? I almost said Sunday.
Yeah, I think there's a wide range of outcomes for Jordan Love, but I think he raised his floor significantly in last season down the stretch. So, the fact that he made it with the 4 no-name receivers, and now I wouldn't call them no-names. Like Jaden Reed was a nice prospect. Christian Watson flashed as early in his rookie season, but they were the youngest team in football last year, and for what he did, they had the 8th most points. I could go on, and I won't bore you with the stats, but he made a lot with a little. And you know, the coaching staff and him, I think, are in sync more so than you would see any other second-year starter, because he was next to LaFleur on the sideline for all 3 seasons. You know, it's very rare that you get a quarterback that has 3 seasons to sit with his coach on the sideline behind a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think Jordan Love is the real deal. I do think that, you know, in terms of earning the money, it's not fair to say he didn't earn the money, because everything that he did up to that point, like, they've been in the room with him for all this time. It's not necessarily what they've seen on the field, which he's proven that as well to me and clearly to the Packers. But I expect big things from Jordan Love. I think an MVP is within the range of outcomes. I'm not going and predicting that. I'm definitely going to splash a little bit, but I'm not predicting the Jordan Love MVP, but it's for sure within the range of outcomes and how he finishes this season. The young receiver group is all poised and unselfish, and you know, you really don't know which one is the 1, 2, 3, or even 4 at this point. So all of those things point towards success for the quarterback position. And you know, even the tight ends with Musgrave and Kraft, and then you know, you can make the case that Josh Jacobs was on a downswing. I think he was dealing with hella injuries last year and also playing uninspired football behind a coach that really, in the beginning of the season at least, just wasn't really lining up with what he was trying to do. And Oakland, or Vegas at this point, they were a mess. So I really do believe that Jordan Love is going to finish in the top 5 of MVP race. And if that all goes as far as I see it, the Packers will make another playoff run. I don't know how deep, and all of it's on Jordan Love. So yeah, I think he's going to deliver. And as far as this week, I'm not so sure, because I kind of talked to you a little bit in pre, and Jordan Love does a lot better against the blitz. Vic Fangio is not really known for his aggressive approach in terms of blitzing. So him sitting back there and kind of playing the zone, 10 out of Jordan Love's 11 picks last year were thrown against zone coverage. He burns the blitz and he burns man. And if for the Packers to have success in this game, it's really, I feel, going to come down on Josh Jacobs and the offensive line as to how they're going to be able to open holes in the run game. Because I'm not so sure that Jordan Love is going to be able to figure it out week 1 with this young group, even though they've been together a full season now. It's going to be a little bit tougher than maybe Packer fans think. I think we're in for a very, very tough game offensively.
Oh, I agree. It's going to be, we're going to get into it as we get down to the positions. We talked about you're not confident in this game. I'm not confident in this game. I think we both have questions about both our rosters here. And I completely agree with Jordan Love. And I also feel the same way about Jalen Hurts. We've seen Hurts. He's going to produce. Even last year when they were losing, like, the offense looked bad, but the guys that he can run, he can pass, and there's too many weapons now. I do think Hurts is also going to be in the MVP conversation, just because based on his surrounding talent, his numbers are going to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to watch both of these guys. But moving on, you brought up Josh Jacobs. Both of these offenses have new shiny toys in the backfield, with the Eagles obviously with Saquon Barkley, and then the Packers with Josh Jacobs. And I agree, Josh Jacobs is a downhill runner, which is what the Packers are historically known for. I feel like Aaron Jones was kind of like an outlier based on his play style, but growing up, the Packers always had a hard-nosed downhill runner. Do you think the A.J. Dillon injury is going to affect it at all? I know a lot of Packers fans are high on Marshawn Lloyd, but how does the Dillon injury play into that?
I mean, you never want to see a guy, because I think the Dillon injury may actually be worse than season ending. I think he has the same thing Sterling Sharp ended up not playing ever again from, which is like a stinger that's actually like somewhat of a fracture, and it's just not worth it. I think A.J. Dillon thing, look, Packer fans don't like A.J. Dillon, the running back, but Packer fans have had a propensity to just like fall in love with the personality of a player, and because he's a nice guy, they like to keep him around. I didn't think A.J. Dillon was the right fit at this point going forward, but considering what I do know about football and what coaching staffs look for on third down, A.J. Dillon did a lot of those other small things properly. He's a good pass blocker, and you know, he was going to fight for the tough yards, even though he kind of ran soft for his size. Yeah, cannot stand A.J. Dillon running the football, but I do think that it is a kind of a loss for us, because I think Marshawn Lloyd's also, there was threats of him potentially starting the season on the IR and missing the first 4 games. So I'm not quite sure that he's ready. And I know that he's not really that great in the pass protection game. And his major issue, which is my main thing in the NFL, is hold the football. I think he had 10 fumbles at USC in his career. Like, that's way too much for a guy that was never the actual bell cow. And the fact that he was never able to actually command like a lion's share of the carries at any stop is a little bit worrisome for me. So what he is to me is a nice piece that maybe we could throw a screen to, but I really think it's going to rely on if Josh Jacobs could stay healthy and get, 250, 300 carries, and then really it's a one and done deal for me. They could cut him in the next season and it won't affect them going forward, because I have no affinity to Josh Jacobs, but let's see what he could do this season. Hand him the ball a lot. I do not believe in Lloyd just yet. And we'll see where it goes. But yeah, the running back position we lose a lot with losing Dillon, because I just don't trust Lloyd to be able to pass protect.
That valuable point. AJ Dillon, yes, could be a big loss for the Packers here, but Josh Jacobs in his career has been a workhorse back. So hopefully you're not going to feel the brunt of that for most of the season. Just hopefully you feel it Friday night.
Yeah, right.
But the Eagles, moving to the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, I expect him to be used a ton, and I actually think he's going to be used more as a receiver out of the backfield as opposed to a straight line runner. With running plays, I've been trying to snag him in almost every fantasy league I'm in. If I'm in that back half of that first round, because I think he's going to be a PPR monster. Everybody's like, "Oh, they have so many weapons." Yeah, but Saquon is like your most versatile weapon in this offense because of his ability to create after the catch, and also run the ball as well. And then obviously they paid him a shit ton of money. They're going to use him as much as possible. And honestly, like we talked about Kenny Gainwell and then Will Shipley. I like Shipley a lot. I thought he was a solid running back in a bad offense at Clemson the past couple years. And then Kenny Gainwell is kind of just like meh. I liked him like when he first came in, but now he's just kind of like he is what he is. He's just a guy.
He's a coach's guy. They probably love him because he does all the little things and doesn't complain when he comes off the field. But yeah, Gainwell's mid.
Exactly.
Same as AJ Dillon, really. Maybe a different type of player, but same vibes,
Yeah, but they both do their job for what the teams need. So I actually am hoping that like if an RB2 situation does occur, Saquon needs a break. I'm hoping to see Shipley out there instead of Gainwell, because I think he's a little more of a playmaker. So the depth behind Saquon, I'm not high on. So the Eagles are going to need him to pull one of those rare healthy seasons off if he's going to remain a weapon for them.
Yeah. Yeah, rare healthy for anybody though, really.
For sure, yeah, nowadays. But now we're getting to the offensive line. I guess we can include tight end in this as well. Eagles, giant question mark. Obviously, Jason Kelce is gone. In steps Cam Jurgens, who I'm not excited about, but I'm not really concerned because he played every game last year at guard. He's got experience. Kelce handpicked him when the Eagles drafted him. They said, this is the guy you need to target for my replacement. And then everybody was like, well, now Jalen Hurts is going to be making the blitz pickups calls, and that could be a disaster, like he's never done it before in the NFL. Blah. The Eagles were dead last in blitz pickup last season. Their response to teams blitzing was absolutely abysmal. And I'm not saying like Jason Kelce is like a bad player. Obviously, he's not. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But like, if Hurts is it can't get worse. So I'm not really that concerned there as far as that goes. And you still have Lane Johnson, you still have Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, obviously, and then Dallas Goedert, who I think is actually like a little overrated by a lot of people. But he's serviceable. He's like a solid, like average to above average tight end. But I really don't have any concerns about how this Eagles offensive line is going to perform this year.
I agree. And again, but we could pretty much say this about every single end of every conversation we have throughout this show is barring health.
Right.
As long as everybody stays healthy, they're going to be good. I kind of feel the same about Green Bay. The left side is solid. Center is solid. They've been playing together for a really long time. They drafted Andrew Morgan in the first round. Probably going to slot him in at right guard. They got Zach Tom slid in at right tackle. And to me, I think that they even have two other guys in Green Bay that are kind of interchangeable, little Swiss Army knife pieces. I'm really high on the offensive line. The Packers have found some really good gems late in drafts. They've done really well drafting in the middle rounds. And outside of health, I think the Packers should have an above average offensive line. They struggled at the beginning of the year last year with inconsistency, but as the season wore on and they got Aaron Jones back healthy after the hamstring injury, they really started opening up holes for him in a massive way. I think also gaining confidence down the stretch. I think the Packers are going to struggle this week, just to get that out of the way, because of the same reasons. It's kind of, the Eagles are just so strong up front, so I'm not so sure about this matchup. But going forward throughout the year, I'm very, very confident that, barring injury, the Packers should perform well, maybe top 12 offensive line in football. I don't know what metrics you want to go by, but I think they're going to be an above average line.
Yeah, the only website that I really looked at preseason was PFF, and they had the Packers ranked 14th, which is top third of the league.
Yeah.
Or top half of the league, I'm sorry. But and they're young too, so a lot of room for improvement as well to go up. DeMarco chimes in here. Don't Green Bay kind of start off slowly in the beginning of the season?
Kind of touched on that a little bit ago. I do think the Packers struggle to find themselves a little bit as the weather gets colder. They tend to play a lot better in November. Look at LaFleur's record in November and December games. He's got like 3 losses in his career. It's kind of impressive, but they could get started a little bit sooner. And typically Philly starts off strong. So that's why I don't like this matchup. Another reason why I don't like this matchup.
All right, now moving on to the D lines here. I think both of these fronts are actually strengths of these teams. Packers can get after the quarterback, Rashawn Gary. Bursted, not bursted on the season. I feel like he's been around for a while, but he definitely
he had his breakout.
Played his best season, last year. So they're looking for a big return out of him. And the Eagles lost to Sean Redden, who was their best pass rusher. And it's looking like a smart decision now with what's going on with the Jets up there. So we'll see how that plays out. But they basically swapped with the Jets as they added. Why am I totally blanking on his name right now? Bryce Huff. I'm sorry, Bryce Huff. But I think Huff is kind of a question mark. He last year was his first only not even a breakout season. It was only good season. And the Eagles paid him as if he's been a superstar for a few years now. But I just hoping he remains on that trajectory and the payday doesn't bring his performance down. And then the Eagles also lost Fletcher Cox to retirement. They're putting a lot of stock in Jalen Carter to be that guy, which I think he is. I think he's a top 3 defensive tackle in football. The guy's an absolute monster. But my question mark is the guy going to be playing next to him in Jordan Davis, who flashes here and there, but has the last few years has come out overweight, has started to break down later in the season. You can see his effort, his motor just starts to slow down. And that's a guy the Eagles are going to be asking a lot of this year to fill that void with Fletcher Cox.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Jordan Davis is I feel like everybody in high school that played football had someone like that on their team that just didn't take it serious enough. But if they did, they would just be the best player by far. I think with him is him knowing that he was in maybe more of a limited role. I think him knowing he's playing is going to pay dividends for him throughout the season. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, because it's not in terms of a character flaw, but I just think he's going to be fine because of the fact that he's going to be on the field a ton. So him being involved and not having to come in and out and feel like he's better. He's probably in his head never sat it down in his life. So now all of a sudden he's not. Now Fletcher Cox being out of town, I think that could be a little addition by subtraction. Again, great player, one of the best Eagles of all time, if you consider it. I just think that his time was up, and these younger guys need to play. So I think that the Eagles defensive front is very good. Outside of a couple other teams, they could match up with just about anybody. And I think that because if we're tying everything back into the week 1 game, they're going to have some hands full, because I think the Packers are going to have to establish the run in that game. And the Eagles, in my estimation, their strength, at least early, is going to be leaning on stopping the run, playing zone defense in this game, and then kind of just shutting down the running lanes. And I think that they have the tools to be able to do that. And with the rookie at guard going up against Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, who we just said maybe not taking it serious enough, I think he's going to take week 1 really serious, and he's going to have his hands full as a rookie. So that worries me a lot for sure. Flipping things over to the Packers D-line, they're loaded with first-round picks. They got pretty much 3 Georgia players. I'm exaggerating. It's the same thing as Philly. It's like the Bulldogs on both sides, on the defensive side for both teams. But with Rashawn Gary, I think Lucas Van Ness is going to be a nice little piece this year on a very similar trajectory as Rashawn Gary, where it was like a high first rounder, didn't do much. Now it's gaining some confidence and getting some more PT along with it. New defensive system too in Green Bay, which is very different from what we've been doing as a typical 3-4. Now we're more of a 4-3 with Jeff Hafley. I think it suits our defensive players a lot better, but there's some guys that I think are maybe stuck in no man's land because they've had personnel based out of 3-4. So now they're going to have some guys that a little question marks about what they're going to do and what their new role is going to be. So that's my question mark, is seeing like, how are they going to line some of these guys up? Rashawn Gary, is he going to be a hand in the dirt guy all of a sudden, or is he going to be kind of playing the outside and then asked to maybe step back in coverage? I'm very interested to see how Hafley works all this out. But in talent, as far as talent goes, Kenny Clark, Devondre Wyatt, they're up there with just about anybody.
Yeah,
just got to prove it.
Yeah, no, Packers have that PFF has them ranked as the 11th best D line in the NFL, and I think they're probably closer to like more of a like 8 or 9.
Yeah, because they just have some guys that you need to see a little bit from, but the talent level is there, and the draft pedigree, all that stuff, it's all there.
And PFF has the Eagles ranked 3rd with the D line, and I feel like they're kind of really hitching their horses to Jordan Davis stepping up, Bryce Huff continuing what he's doing, and I mean honestly, Joe Bumpus comments, it says big concern is linebackers. We're going to get into that next, but a guy that I feel like really needs to step up this season is Nolan Smith. The Eagles jumped back into the first round with their 2nd pick and took Nolan Smith with the 30th pick last season. I was cool with Nolan Smith, but like Brian Branch was sitting right there, and we saw how good he looked for the Lions last year as a rookie, and he would really fill a need with this Eagles team. So Nolan Smith, but he's a guy I feel like with their linebacker woes, I feel like in his style of play and the way how athletic he is, I feel like that's a guy that should almost be transitioning to an outside linebacker that could really help this team, especially if you're going to keep bringing back guys like Brandon Graham's on his farewell tour. You went out and signed Huff. You still have Sweat. So, like, Smith is still down on that DN depth chart. He's a really good athlete. Let's get him on the field and see what he can do, especially with a linebacking group that doesn't really have any standouts of note, especially with Devin White now missing week 1 with an ankle injury, won't even travel with the team to Brazil. The Eagles linebackers are huge question marks. Like, the best linebacker in preseason was probably Zach Bond, who's been like an average, like middling vet most of his career, but I was kind of impressed, especially filling the holes in the run game. And then I've had the same thing, and then another giant question mark, same thing is Nakobe Dean. Like, can the guy stay healthy? I feel like he's actually played pretty well when he's been asked to, but he might be too small. And then the Eagles went out and drafted another linebacker who fell in the draft, whose numbers, his college output, just like Nakobe Dean, should have been a top 10 pick, but he's so little in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You're asking a lot of these guys, and somebody's going to have to step up, and I'm not sure who's going to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Nakobe Dean is the biggest troll on whatnot, dude. Like, I've pulled so many Nakobe Dean signed mini helmets on the fucking Eagles, bro. I'm talking like 30. Everyone chasing the Jalen Hurts, and you see the Eagles sign, and it's Nakobe Dean. The guy signs a lot. He needs to do a little more tackling and a little less signing.
But I mean, if it was a Georgia Nakobe Dean helmet, you'd be in business.
Bro, I've gotten those too. I was actually at a show in Atlanta, Culture Collision, and I met Nakobe Dean. He's very short, bro. Like, I could not believe that he was an NFL linebacker. He would probably definitely rip my head off my shoulders. But yeah, I was like, wow, that's an NFL linebacker, huh? You wouldn't think it. But yeah, they are obviously, that's the biggest weakness on their entire team. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels when we're comparing these two teams. The Eagles and the Packers have almost the same strengths at the same position groups. And then you get to the middle linebacker or just a linebacker in general. And it's like Quay Walker has more 15-yard penalties than he does tackles in a season. They don't really have anybody that's been able to do much. I do really like the addition of Edgerrin Cooper in the draft. I think
I loved Cooper. He's
very fast. And you said Devin White. I think he reminds me of a similar play style as these guys, sideline to sideline. May struggle a little bit in certain types of styles, and maybe you might not want him in the red zone, and I don't think he's that great in coverage and all that. But I think with the talent that he's got, there's at least a chance that we have somebody that could turn into a all-pro caliber player. Maybe not right away, but I think that there's the tools there to do it. So I'm happy about grabbing somebody, but very, very concerned about the Packers linebackers, the Mike with Quay Walker. He's the one that's going to be calling the defense and things like that, where I just mentioned, his leadership leaves a lot to be desired. So having him kind of be the guy that's talking things out with the rest of the guys out there, I'm not too excited about that, but I'm a believer in second chances. So let's see if he could figure it out and get his head screwed on. But we'll get to the secondary in a little bit. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of blending when it comes to the way the Packers style plays with linebacker and safety. So
yeah, linebacker is without a doubt the biggest question mark for both of these teams. And I feel like both of these teams have two superb running backs that are going to be running right at them. So the D-line is going to have to do a lot of the work to limit these two-star running backs because the linebackers might not be that much help. But moving on to the secondary, I'm going to put emphasis on dairy for the Eagles because we have Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean back there. Given Cooper's probably not going to play that much, maybe special teams, but at least not yet. But again, this is another area where the Eagles have, like, you have obviously have Darius Slay. In my opinion, still a very good corner in this league. He had a knee procedure in the offseason. He said he hasn't ran this well or felt this healthy since he was 25. So that remains to be seen how actually healthy he is or how fast he looks out there on the field. But big play Slay. Big plays don't come that often anymore for him, but I think he's still a very solid corner in the NFL. And then Quinyon Mitchell is apparently going to be either starting in the nickel or outside opposite him. Fangio has already said he's going to be on the field a ton. I liked him. That's the guy I wanted the Eagles to take. I know he's from a small school, and the Eagles have kind of fell in love with taking Bama, Georgia, or Power 5 guys, but Quinyon Mitchell is definitely a talent. And Nick Saban said at the draft, his number one target last year in the portal was Quinyon Mitchell. He said, that's the player I want. And he said he never got in the portal. So, so he could have been.
He's loyal. That's good to know for free agency down the line.
Right. Yeah. Don't hop in that portal either. And then Isaiah Rodgers is going to be one of the Eagles' main corners this year as well, who's coming off a 1-year suspension for gambling. So it's going to remain to be seen. Does he have any rust? Is he able to just pick up where he left off? Because I thought he was pretty decent for the Colts a couple years ago. But a lot of question marks. Reed Blankenship, another guy where I feel like I'd rather just see him put on some weight and move to linebacker because he's a little slow back there. But he's one of the best, if not the best tackler on the Eagles. Very good. But it's just covering them deep zones worries me with Reed Blankenship. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, having him back is a huge boost for this secondary. But outside of Slay and Gardner-Johnson, even though I'm high on Mitchell, it's a lot of guys that you're just kind of waiting and seeing and asking questions about.
Yeah, that was really like their biggest downfall last year was they just couldn't cover anybody in the second half of the season. So, but you like to see your team go out and address their needs in the draft, and they did what they needed to do. At least, they need these guys to come out and now hit. But I think Mitchell is going to be the real deal. And DeJean, I followed him so much through the draft process because I thought Mr. Derriere himself was going to be 100% a Green Bay Packer. It just had the writing all over the wall. And then the Eagles jumped up and grabbed him. But I can't say I'm upset now because of what I've gotten to see out of the guy they took instead, which is Javon Bullard. And this dude absolutely thumps. We all know the highlight of him knocking Marvin Harrison Jr. out cold in the back of the end zone in the Natty game a couple years back. So I feel like, he's going to be the guy that they throw in there in those situations. I think he's going to start. The way they treated him in the preseason was like they treated him like a starter. He didn't even dress in the last game. So he got the starter treatment. And I think they're going to bring him up a lot and put him in the slot to help with run support in potential passing situations. But he's really good coming up and making hits. And Xavier McKinney, big signing. I think he's just coming into his own. It's very rare to get a free agent at 24 years old at that position. And he was like 4th in coverage in PFF grade last year. So I'm very high on Xavier McKinney. And in terms of scheme fit, we have Jeff Hafley, who's a former defensive backs coach. So I think the tools that he's got at his disposal now, even Evan Williams, Eric Stokes, there's a lot of good things coming out about him in camp, former first-round pick, playing for a contract. So the Valentine and Ballantyne, the biggest shit talkers in the entire NFL, which I love, but sometimes it gets a little out in front of them too, because they do get burned quite a lot. But you like to see secondary that plays with confidence. And I think we haven't even mentioned the guy yet that is the backbone of it all, and that's Jair. I think the Packers secondary is a major strength for them, and they're going to need it on Friday night, because you can make the case about that being the biggest strength for the Eagles, being their receiving core for sure. So very excited to see those matchups across the board. I'm very excited to see Javon Bullard in action. And even Evan Williams, I'm curious to know how they're going to plan on using him, because I think they really hit 2 home runs in the draft in the secondary this year for sure. Very excited about the secondary.
Yeah, it should be an interesting matchup. As a football fan, any football fan that's not excited to see A.J. Brown and Jair Alexander match up one-on-one, you're crazy. It's going to be one of the premier corners versus one of the premier wide receivers in the league. Talking about you wanted Cooper on the Packers. Did you see he actually did an interview? I don't know if it was on a podcast or it was with an Eagles
he got pranked.
He got prank called 5 times during the draft, and multiple of them were the Packers. And he said the Eagles actually had to call him 3 times before he actually answered.
Believed it. Yeah. That's a tough way to deal with something like that, because obviously you're stressing, because there's a shred of embarrassment that comes to these guys that get kind of skipped on in the draft. But not for me personally. It's like, I don't give a fuck. Draft me 6th round, I don't care. I wouldn't go to New York though, or wherever they held them, because I would never be able to sit through that anxiety of being like the last dude in there. It's just you don't get to escape that sometimes. It really matters if you're the type that Rodgers is, where you're such an egomaniac that it doesn't matter and you use it to fuel you. But some of these guys, man, they just literally get stripped down to nothing. Mm-hmm. And like by the end of it, you're like, he just wants to cry.
Yeah, Will Levis last year was the worst. They just kept showing him, and it's just like, dude, stop.
Yeah, dude.
Just go home.
Yeah, so, dude, just go home. His girl I think his girl broke up with him after that shit.
Yeah, but then they dropped a tape this summer, so
yeah,
he got his
Hog Levis, bro.
But if you were a top not a top prospect, but like a borderline like late 1st round pick, and you fall out of the 1st round, are you going back night 2?
I would have to talk it over with my mom. Be like, yo, Ma, what do we do here? Because I mean, you want to go out there and show like, the strength of character and things like that, but it's a tough, man. I don't know. It depends. The media, it depends how Twitter was treating me or X was tweeting me the night before. I don't know. That might be tough, bro. I have another good question about the draft process. If you were in like the 6th round, would you rather get drafted in the 6th or 7th round, or would you rather just not get drafted and pick your destination?
Yeah, because I don't know how that works. Do 6th round picks get any type of?
It's like I guess there's a little bit of a boost in terms of finances, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But you don't get to pick it. And then you could also like kind of play agent yourself and scheme fit. Like, I feel like there's a better opportunity here. I asked this anytime I've ever interviewed like a player that was going through this process that maybe was like a fringe prospect. I'd ask this question, and most of them say they want to get drafted.
I think it's also like an ego thing too.
Yeah,
like say, like I was,
and they also most of them also admitted right after that it was just an ego thing. But like thinking about the question in reality, it's like there is some caveats to not getting drafted in that spot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're gonna fall that late, having the option to pick what situation you think is best for you, I think would absolutely be more beneficial than being a 7th or 6th round pick. But yeah, exactly. But you don't get to say like, oh, I was so and so, I was drafted this year, like. You're kind of just like one of the other guys that was in that draft class. But yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah. But, I would definitely want to get drafted too, though, I think. But I have a big ego, so it kind of makes sense.
All right, we're gonna so special teams. I almost excluded the kickers. Even though sometimes when it comes to betting, I don't think they're actual people. And at least I don't treat them like they're people. Sometimes when it comes to betting, but the Eagles obviously have one of the most reliable kickers in football, and Jake Elliott, at least from a deep, like it's actually weird. Like anything like 35 in, I'm like, he might push this, or he might pull it. But like anything like 50 or above, I'm like, I don't even watch. I'm gonna go to automatic. The Eagles got 3. So I'm very confident in Jake Elliott's abilities here. If it comes down to it, versus the Packers here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Braden Narvison, we don't know anything about this kid. He had 3 stops in college, which is kind of normal these days, but what I do know about him is he's not Anders Carlson and he's not Chris Joseph or whoever the hell else they just cut. So I'm pumped about that. And this dude's got, he's got a little bit of the it factor. The team likes him. He was 6 for 7 in the preseason with the Titans, and the one miss was from 59, but he did drill a 58-yarder, and it was with the game on the line, 13-12 game winner. So I like the kid. It's anybody not named Anders Carlson, I'm all in on. I'm Keyshawn Nixon as one of the best punt and kick returners in the game. I think the new rule is going to benefit us as well as some other teams, and it could hurt us in terms of coverage because we can't cover kicks. But yeah, and Rich Bisaccia, I think with his 3rd season with Green Bay, I think hopefully rights the ship because we've had really, really bad special teams problems, lost playoff games because of it, and you could go on. But hopefully we got things figured out.
Absolutely, yeah. The Packers have had their special teams woes. That used to be one of the main things I used to point out when trying to predict how their games would go from a betting aspect. Special teams is always a major red flag. But I'm glad you brought up the new kickoff rule. I was just going to ask, like, how much do you think, not even necessarily just Eagles Packers, but how much do you think it's actually going to matter in NFL games? Because I mean, you've seen why am I blanking right now? Who is the team? Oh, the Rams said they're going to make Kyron Williams their new returner.
Yeah.
So that's a guy's like that made me worry about drafting him in fantasy because now I'm like, all right, well, does that mean they like Blake Corum a lot more?
He started the season last year as the punt returner too, but he also started the season last year as like this undrafted nobody who had no role, and he kind of worked himself into that. But this is the Rams, dude. I think McVay has a weird trick up his sleeve every now and again. You saw Cooper Kupp returning punts as late as 2 years ago, last year. Like they throw certain guys out there in certain situations, and he's the type of guy that wants the best player on the team to have his ball in the hands. If it wasn't for Blake Corum existing, nobody would give a shit about Kyron returning punts. It would actually just be a bonus. Be like, oh, word, you might get a touchdown. But because there is somebody else there, maybe this is the thing that allows Kyron to be able to do it. And having Blake Corum there, I think Blake Corum has a role no matter what in that scenario. But back to the kickoff thing, it's going to help teams that have a good coach schemed up, a good scheme coached up, and they have a talented player that they're willing to put in that spot, then I do think it's going to be a significant boost in field position for a chunk of teams. And there's going to be teams that struggle with it as well. And I think it will matter because field position is one of the unsung things in football that nobody really pay attention to, but it matters and it's big, especially when we're talking about these games late in the year and playoff games. Yeah, I think it's an advantage for the Packers with Keyshawn Nixon. So I'm happy. I think the Saints will like it. You could go through the teams, and you know the good returners.
I think the Eagles are gonna like it. People might laugh when I say this, but like Britton Covey is a very good return man.
Yeah.
Anybody can look up his numbers. He might be the best returner in college football history. And he's very solid. Like he doesn't dance. He doesn't like nitpick. He finds a lane and just hits it and gets as much as he can. And like you brought up, it's gonna matter. And it can be a game changer. Like in my opinion, I think a turnover is like the ultimate momentum swing. But if you hit a big punt return or a big kickoff return, that can swing momentum like crazy as well.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how the kickers are going to be able to kind of nail this because there is a little nuance to it. So the good kickers are going to be able to find who's going to be the first coach to expose something and break it. That's what we need to find out, and that's what I'm curious about because it is nuanced for sure. In terms of if it goes out of the end zone, it's like there's 2 different touchbacks. So I'm curious, but I do think it definitely matters, and it's going to be fun to see. Give it a shot. Let's see.
Right? Yeah, can't hurt. The NFL, I feel like it's kind of been too stagnant for too long. And I think it's going to work a lot better than the MLB's pitch clock and extra runner on second.
I don't even hate, honestly.
I don't either, honestly. And faster games are beneficial.
It sucks when you go to the game and you run out and you're running late and you get there and it's like the 5th inning. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not just haven't gone to many games, but who gives a shit?
Right, yeah, busy man. But keys to the game for you here for the Packers. Obviously we hit on a lot with the rosters and how they match up. Personally for me, for the Eagles, I think is going to be negating Josh Jacobs. limiting Jordan Love's ability to stretch the field downfield, because Jordan Love has an absolute cannon of an arm and he throws a beautiful ball. I mean, he hits receivers in stride deep down the field. I think limiting the big plays, containing Josh Jacobs, and it's going to really keep them into the game. And I think establishing um momentum early in offense, because that's the biggest, not even because talent wise it's not a question mark, but the Eagles fans have such a bad taste in our mouths with the way last season ended from an offensive perspective. They have to start quickly on offense. I think a quick start on offense, containing Jacobs and limiting the deep ball from Love are the Eagles' keys to victory here.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of hit on it earlier, and what I believe is the key is going to be able to establish the run for the Packers. So we're in lockstep in terms of how we're seeing this game. I think the Packers are going to have to run the ball. Jordan Love struggles against zone coverage. He struggles when teams don't blitz him much, which I guess is a good sign for a young quarterback. But at the same time, for this game in particular, it's not the best matchup for that reason. I think the Packers front on offense is going to have a little bit of difficulties, at least early in the game. Maybe if we could establish some run and wear them down a little bit, I think there's a chance for us to get things going in the second half there. But if we're picking the game, I would probably go. I'm not going to pick against Green Bay, so I'll just say I like the over.
We're once again in lockstep. Like we talked about it before. You're not confident. I'm not that confident. But the one thing I am confident in, both of these teams are hitting mid-20s.
Yeah.
And I think this game's going to go over. But
Yeah.
So fireworks in Brazil to start off Friday night. Now real quick before I let you go, I just want to get season predictions. Obviously you're not going to don't bang the table and be like, you never do this, but this is your year. But what are your realistic expectations for the Packers this season?
So I mean, like, it's a tough scenario in the NFC North. Detroit is a very, very good football team. I think Green Bay is a clear playoff team in the NFC. I think there's going to be a decent amount of surprise teams. I think the Commanders might be a lot better than people think, with that offense kind of playing the way they should play with Jaden Daniels. A lot riding on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go. I think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl, because it's, we're not going to do that here. But I do think that they're a contender, and I think that they'll make a deep playoff run. I just don't want to have to run into San Fran again, even though I'm kind of maybe expecting a small regression from them. Their aura was all messed up, but they had a good day yesterday. They had a very good day yesterday, right in time. So I think the Packers are going to make a deep playoff run. They could win their division. Detroit's favored, but I'll say Green Bay wins their division. They're going to win 11 games, and then see what happens in the playoffs. They have a shot this year for sure. I like the way their team is built. They don't have that number one receiver. Jordan Love is the only one on the offense getting paid. So all these other guys are young, hungry, upstart. I like the build of this team. All depends on how Jeff Hafley and these players respond to the new defensive system, and if some of these guys could kind of cash in on some of that first round talent that they got. But yeah, for sure a contender. I like them in the NFC. I honestly like Philly in the NFC too, though. So
yeah, I think this could be an NFC Championship game preview. If everything works out. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I think the Eagles have 11 to 12 wins this season for sure. Offensively, they're a top 3 most talented offense in football. The biggest question mark: does Jordan Davis step up? Does Nakobe Dean take his? Does Devin White regain what he was a couple seasons ago for the Bucks? Does one of these young guys in the secondary step up? I think if the Eagles get any shred of upgrade of what they're exceeding expectations on defense, then they're a Super Bowl contender. But with all these question marks right now, I think it's at minimum you got to at least make the divisional round this year. You can't go one and done in the playoffs. You got to win the NFC East and NFC divisional round at worst, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that too for me. Yeah, we can't go one and done. Got to at least match what we did last year. You can't regress year 2 of Jordan Love. And yeah, Philly, a lot of pressure on Philly win a playoff game this year. They got to do it. Sirianni might be on the chopping block if not.
Oh, I agree. And my only worry too, like with Sirianni, like even if they have like a tremendous season this year, he's shown that like he can't like call a game or like run an offense like that. And
Yeah.
we went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago with Steichen as the offensive coordinator, but it was clear that he was running the show. It was his offense.
Yeah.
Last year without him, the Eagles offense took a tremendous step back. So now my worry is, though, even if they ball out, like somebody's going to come calling for Kellen Moore to come be their head coach. And then when you have a head coach who is just basically like a CEO, doesn't really like do anything like that, then you're relying on guys to prop
Yeah,
him up
you lose
every single season.
the ability to stay good for a consistent period of time when you get turnover at the OC, and poor Jalen Hurts too, man, dealing with that shit like every other season. But that's a product of your own success in a lot of ways. I'm sure they would trade it for a Super Bowl in a heartbeat.
For
Sure, you
sure.
wouldn't complain.
No,
You
I'll
could
take the Super
give me
Bowl.
the ring, and then you could take Sirianni.
Right.
Go wherever.
But yeah, that's just my concern. It's like you're gonna need a guy every year to come in and prop this guy up just
Yeah,
because
and I think
he's
that's
not.
Jalen Hurts' concern as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this guy can't get a consistent play caller to save his life.
Yeah.
Maybe they just promote Moore to head coach, and then we're golden. So, but
Yeah,
Cowboys fans bitch about Moore, but I thought he was terrific when he was in Dallas. I was actually really excited about
yeah,
that
I mean,
hire.
like, and he fits this style. If you look at their personnel, they need a guy that's going to come in and give the players what they want. These players want to go out there and run around, make things happen. Kellen Moore is going to make that happen. They're going to run probably more plays than any team in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this offense looks like. Chris, appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Friday night is going to be electric. Again, make sure you check out Chris with Break Buds on the Whatnot app. And then also football season, going to be dabbling in a little YouTube, he says. And like I said, I hopped in one night, got an autograph.
Yeah, bro, I'll send you guys the link. I'll send you the link if you want to share it out to your people.
Oh, absolutely. I'll share it out.
Sure.
But yeah, I got an autographed Tyreek Hill jersey. It's sick, authentic. Comes with the certificate and everything. No BS. So definitely check them out. I'm back tomorrow night with the Green Zone, 7:30, right here. Betting preview, a look around the NFL from a betting perspective, and we'll see how many plays I give out. Because right now it's looking like more like talk to you Sunday, but
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Chris, thanks for joining us, and
Appreciate you having me. Good luck on Friday night, brother.
you too. Thank you
Let's
guys
do
for
it.
tuning in.